Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray. Zach is the founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors and is one of the nation's leading financial advisors, helping people answer some of retirement's biggest questions, covering topics like income, taxes, and Social Security.
So this is a place where we have to be really concerned about how much of this money am I going to keep?
Zach is here to make sure you can enjoy the retirement you deserve. This is Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray.
Most of us probably aren't looking to live in the lap of luxury come retirement, yet we don't want to just get by either. Ask many Americans and they may tell you they define retirement success as being comfortable. If that's you, you'll want to stay tuned. Today, Zach shares the 4 things that can help you achieve a comfortable retirement. Plus, in Digging Deep, Zach tells you about the true impact of long-term care. And later, we'll answer retirement questions from viewers just like you. Zach, as always, nice to be back with you today.
Love to be with you.
All right, so let's talk about when you meet with families. I want to be clear, I'm okay with a little bit of luxury, but many probably just say, I don't want to struggle in retirement. Is that what you hear quite a bit?
It is, and I think that folks are a bit fearful of heading into those retirement years, and I get it. I'm walking away from the career path, the income stream that I had. They just want to know they're going to be okay. And what's interesting, Kelly, is we ask that question before we speak at really any dinner workshop, or maybe it's an educational workshop at a local junior college or even high school. And I tell you, the question is, what is that biggest fear, the biggest concern? Almost every single time it's a resounding, am I going to be all right? And it might be worded a few different ways, but what I would say is that becomes the question, which really reflects back to what you just mentioned. Folks just want to know they're okay. They can be comfortable. They can live the lifestyle that they've worked so hard for. And I think that's an interesting way of thinking about, now what do we do? How can we stretch things without having to get out over our skis with any sort of risk? And I think, an analogy we use from time to time is that when we step someone through our process and we look at income and we start, you know what, Kelly, if you only maybe hit singles and doubles even with returns, you're going to be just in an amazing spot. Versus if you step up to the plate and maybe you swing hard for the fences, but you strike out. And I think that's really important for folks to understand as they look at the different investments that they have, and frankly, the strategies and the plan that they're going to live out.
So Zach, I want to talk about a recent study that shows retirees who are living what they deem a comfortable retirement, they do 4 things. So let's talk about those. First is they have guaranteed income. So how important is guaranteed income for that comfortable retirement?
Well, I think that is something that we are really striving for that maybe we don't see as much as we used to. The idea of a pension, at least for the private sector, Kelly, is something that's changed greatly over the last few decades that I've been in this business. It used to be that we were sitting down with folks that all the time had a great pension cash flow, and that was going to take care of most of their needs. Maybe you throw in Social Security, and hey, everything's in a good spot, which allows us to be much more aggressive with our portfolio and the money that we had saved. Not necessarily the case in today's world. That pension, once again, has maybe been adjusted for some folks. It's most definitely changed in a way where we just don't see it as much. And so now we're led back to a position of, what are we going to do to get to guaranteed income? Maybe that's coming from real estate. That can be a place. Annuities could work. It's a way that we can almost recreate a pension with a portion of our portfolio. Maybe we have a very sturdy dividend portfolio that's going to be kicking out something that we can really rely on. But once again, it could be volatile and go up or down in terms of the amount in that account, or at least the principal of that investment over time. But I will tell you that is really giving a lot of peace of mind to folks that might be looking for, where am I going to get this cash flow that I need? How am I going to pay the bills? And as you start to think about that, that idea of protected or more safety type of dollars really gives peace of mind to say, well, now I can be more growth oriented with this other portion of the portfolio. And that's a process that we see work very well, a strategy that seems to work very well for viewers that might be out there looking to say, how do I go and build this plan so that I can have that peace of mind that I'm after?
So if you were just joining us, we're talking about guaranteed income. Some of those examples really being, as Zach mentioned, Social Security, pensions, annuities. So really it all goes back to, I think, Zach, people just wanting to be comfortable in retirement. So we're going to get through unpacking a study about that later. We talked about the 4 things that happen. Right now, I want to hear your thoughts on a comfortable retirement.
I just think that once again, folks want to know that they're going to be in a really good spot. They can live that lifestyle, and maybe they can live out some other dreams. Maybe that's travel and some neat things. Maybe that's just leaving money behind to their children or grandchildren. But I think that making sure that you put that as the focus is extremely important. And really doing your best to maximize or stretch those dollars is important. One thing that we talk about from time to time is our tax reduction report. I think it's an amazing piece that could really help people to and through their retirement years, and might be a way they're not even thinking about to be a little more comfortable in those retirement years of life. And it's a great way to stretch that money moving forward. So as you're looking today to understand what are some ways that we can really stretch those dollars that you've worked so hard for, I would love to get that tax reduction report in your hand. And it's as simple as calling into the show right now. That number is 855-955-6868. And we're going to go ahead and get you in contact with one of our fiduciary advisors, step you through our process, but show you some ways of which you might be a little more confident, a little bit more comfortable in those retirement years. So that number is 855-955-6868.
All right, Zach, thank you. And we are sharing, again, the 4 things a new study says is key to helping you achieve retirement satisfaction. We'll share the next 2 when we come back. And later, Zach explains the true impact of long-term care. Stay tuned.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us today on Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray, as we discuss the 4 keys to a more comfortable retirement. This is such a great topic because if you ask many people, they likely have some pretty big goals for retirement, but struggling financially is typically not one of them. So what does it take to retire comfortably? We're talking about the results of a new study that says those who have retired comfortably do 4 key things. Let's take a moment for a quick recap of the keys we've covered so far. First, they have guaranteed income. Next, they have little to no debt. The third thing is something I'm guessing a lot of people don't really understand. Now, Zach, the third key to a comfortable retirement is that they have a drawdown strategy. So let's spend some time there. While some people may have heard this term, I'm not sure many people understand exactly what it means. So what is a drawdown strategy?
So a drawdown strategy is really having an income plan that you can put in play. And for us, we even think about this in terms of like order of liquidation. Most folks have not given a lot of thought to what bucket am I going to maybe spend down first. We met a gal not too long ago. She was thinking, no tax for a little while, push that back till I have to take it. But what she was doing was basically being in a position of a negative net income on her tax return, and then being at a point where she was waiting, and then being forced to take more money than what she needed to at the point of being in her 70s. My point here is this. That's an example of a drawdown strategy where she was drawing down one bucket first, waiting, then maybe going to draw the next, being in a position where she could have little to no tax, and frankly, a negative tax number on her tax form, but then be in a position where she was substantially higher and forced to take more money than she even needed to live her lifestyle. Extremely important to get a plan in place that you can understand what type of income do I need. Maybe that goes alongside pension, goes alongside Social Security, and in her particular case, just where she pulled the money from was critically important. So getting that drawdown strategy, extremely important.
She's certainly not alone. I mean, that is a really powerful story that you just shared, and a great example of the types of situations that people tend to struggle with financially for retirement. And I think it really speaks to the transition that people have to learn how to navigate when they go from saving for retirement, which for so many of us is automatic, to then trying to find a way to spend their savings with confidence. So tell me more about what you've seen here and why do many retirees struggle spending down their nest egg?
Well, I think it's important to understand that we don't want to see those numbers drop down. In a perfect world, we're always seeing that number grow. But you do have to understand that, especially with tax-deferred money, like that traditional IRA I just mentioned, we're going to be forced to take a certain percentage of it at different points in our life. That RMD age is going to be in our 70s. That's a blanketed statement because they've changed those rules over the last few years. But what I would say to that is that now we're in a position where we're forced to take so much out. And the next year, by the way, Kelly, forced to take a little bit more out, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so it becomes tough to not see maybe some of those accounts drop in a bit of size. But once again, it goes back to the diversified approach, having that income plan in place with the idea of seeing that nest egg continuously grow and move forward. But once again, understanding that we might have to utilize different buckets of money, if you will, at different points in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think those are really important insights there, Zach. As we're discussing these 4 keys to a more comfortable retirement, which again are a source of guaranteed income, little to no debt, and developing a clear withdrawal strategy, let's move on now to that 4th and final common trait among retirees who say they're comfortable. These people seek financial guidance. Why can the right guidance be so vital in and nearing retirement?
Well, now we're at a position where I think strategy becomes extremely important. And from time to time, we see some folks that are really happy doing the majority of their financial planning or investing themselves, but maybe they haven't thought about a really kind of well-rounded plan. As we start to think through 5 components that we think are key, we have to look at income, which we've been talking about, the investments, which is key, understanding fees and performance and all of that, followed by taxes, which we've talked a little bit about today in today's show, healthcare, which I'm going to talk about in that digging deep segment here in just a moment, and then on past that point to be thinking about legacy.
Hey, looking forward to hearing more on that, Zach. Thank you so much for your insights, and also looking forward to talking more when we come back. There are certainly a lot of moving pieces when it comes to your retirement plan, and it's no wonder that many of you are often second-guessing yourselves and wondering, what could you do to improve your situation? The last thing you want at this stage of the game is to make a wrong move with your retirement savings. One way Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors can help is with their tax reduction report. Their goal with that report is to get as much of your hard-earned money into you and your family's pockets, not Uncle Sam's. And we'd love to get that in your hands today. It's simple. Just call 855-955-6868. You'll be asked a few basic questions, and the team can help show you what type of tax savings might exist. By the way, this isn't a dollar here or a dollar there. It could potentially be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. The tax savings could be significant. That number again is 855-955-6868. So make sure you call right away to take advantage of that tax reduction report from Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors. You might be surprised at the savings you'll find. 855-955-6868. Up next in this week's Digging Deep, the true impact of long-term care on you and your family. And later, your retirement questions answered in our Q&A section. Stay tuned.
No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. When you take the time to put the right strategies in place, that means more of your hard-earned money stays in your pocket, not Uncle Sam's. Call Rooted Wealth Advisors now for your free tax reduction report and uncover your future tax savings.
Believe it or not, the majority of us will eventually need long-term care at some point. What are the options and what's the real impact, Zach?
Thanks, Kelly. And we're back with my favorite segment, Digging Deep. So I can't wait to dig into long-term care. Long-term care is something that is really near and dear to me. And here's the reason why. I've touched on this in several segments of the show, but really the reason I got involved in this business is because of my grandparents. And some of the struggles that they had early on in their retirement is really what shaped and pushed me to go down a finance path. I was actually looking at only education, and I'm fortunate to have an education degree and really feel like we bring some education to those in the communities that we serve, and hopefully this education on this show is benefiting you. But I will tell you that the real reason that I got involved in this business is because my grandmother, on my dad's side, she was a single mom, raised 4 kids. She worked very, very hard. She got remarried to a great guy named Harold. And you know what? Howie was bringing a lot to the table. He had a pension, Social Security, and the little bit of savings that my grandmother had combined with her Social Security, they said, you know what? Let's retire. Well, fast forward, right after the turn of the century, Harold's health takes a turn. He needed some long-term care assistance. He was a veteran, and so thankfully we had some veterans availability at a home that was not too far away, and he got that assistance that he needed. But then, once again, fast forward, Harold, he ended up passing away. And now all of a sudden, she was looking at everything with just her Social Security. His pension, well, sadly, because of some choices they made, it did not look anything like what she was expecting. Long-term care really impacted her retirement. On the other side of my family, my mother's side, my grandfather, which is one of my biggest role models, Gramps, is near and dear to me. He paid 18 years out of pocket for his second wife to be in the nursing home. She had Parkinson's disease as far back as I could remember. Sadly, my grandmother passed away when my mother was extremely young, and my grandma Marilyn did a great job of raising my mother along with her children. But fast forward, boy, there was a lot of healthcare needs that she had, primarily based around that Parkinson's concern. And I will tell you that it just was no longer safe for her to live in that old farmhouse that my grandfather had. And so she needed a lot of care. And I tell you all of this is because these are just normal folks that you wouldn't think maybe have that big healthcare cost that really derails their retirement. 18 years of long-term care costs is something that, boy, it can just disrupt the greatest of retirement plan. And I tell you that you might be thinking, well, this just won't happen to me. 70% of 65-year-olds are eventually going to need some sort of long-term care. And the average cost for long-term care, it's over 6 figures now. And so as you start to think about the fact of what this could look like in a really nice facility, especially with the baby boom generation getting near or into their retirement years, I would just urge you to be thinking about what does this look like for your finances. There's 5 components, kind of these 5 worlds, if you will, when it comes to someone's planning process here at Rooted Wealth Advisors. We look at income, and by the way, your number one expense in your retirement years, it's going to be long-term care. You want it to be travel and spoiling the grandkids, but chances are it's going to be that cost of some sort of healthcare cost. Your investments could very well be impacted by that. That's the second piece of the puzzle for us. And so you have to be looking at, when do I need my investments? How are they built? Are they going to be enough in the case that I do have a expensive long-term care stay? Number 3 is taxes. I think you need to stretch that money as best you can. Do that for your own income. Do that to leave behind to the next generation, leave a legacy. But also do it in the case that you get thrown a curveball and you have a very expensive healthcare situation that might not only happen until you're late into your retirement years. The 4th one does happen to be long-term care or healthcare planning. I really think that you need to take some time to think about, how are you going to protect your hard-earned money? How are you going to protect your assets from long-term care costs? Chances are you might need to use it. We've just touched on the fact that 70% of those that are 65-year-olds are going to need that long-term care. I think that is extremely, extremely important. And as you start to think about all of the other pieces of the puzzle, there's a lot that leads up to the point of needing these healthcare costs to be taken care of. The 5th and final piece for us is legacy. And that's not just leaving money behind, though I think that's extremely, extremely important, the estate planning piece of the puzzle. And just even little things, making sure you have your beneficiaries correct and your money's going to be going the right direction to who you want it to go to maybe the right cause you want it to go to. But all of that is affected once again by what is remaining. And I think that's extremely important and maybe circles right back to long-term care. So the question is, what to do about these costs of long-term care? Here's what I tell you. You have options. You could have a traditional long-term care contract. That could be a great option. The risk is you might not utilize it, and if so, maybe you lose some of those dollars that went into it from a premium side. On the other hand, maybe you have enough saved where you could just self-insure. That's a great option if you've done a nice job growing your nest egg. Maybe even something like an indexed universal life contract that has a long-term care rider could be a great option for you as you start to think through maybe ways to take care of chronic or critical care type illness. Those riders can be very, very effective. Here's what I'm challenging you to do today, and that is to just take some action. Think about how are you going to take care of these healthcare costs in retirement? And once again, how do you stretch your money the best you possibly can? Once again, we've been talking about this tax reduction report throughout the show, and I'm going to throw that offer at you one more time because I think it's a great way to once again stretch that hard-earned money for your own use and potentially for the use of something like a healthcare cost. It's as simple as picking up the phone and giving us a call. That number is 855-955-6868. You, along with our fiduciary advisor, are going to step through our process. And we're going to uncover ways that maybe we can stretch your hard-earned money and make the most of your retirement picture. So it's as simple as picking up the phone. There's no cost. There's no obligation. 855-955-6868. Kelly, back to you.
Thank you, Zach. Up next, get answers to your retirement questions in our Q&A segment. Stay tuned.
Did you know taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the right strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. And reducing your taxes means more of your hard-earned money right back in your pocket. Call now for your free tax reduction report to uncover your future tax savings.
Time now to get to your questions. How about it, Zach?
Let's go.
Okay, our first question is from Rosalind. I just found out I will be receiving about $100,000 from a life insurance policy after my grandpa passed away. I'm stunned by the amount because I really didn't expect it, so I've two questions. What should I do with this money, one? And two, I really want to be able to do something like this for my own grandkids one day, so how can I make that happen?
Well, I think that it's beautiful, that we see this happen from time to time. It's like, hey, I wasn't expecting that. And it's an aunt or uncle or a grandfather, grandmother. Now the question becomes, now what, right? Like, what is the next motive in use of these dollars? And for some folks, that becomes very clear. It sounds like in this question, there becomes a bit of that, okay, now what do we do? If one of the reasons that, she wants to utilize these dollars in a way that maybe is suited to her is to leave some of those dollars behind, I would say, well, maybe another life insurance policy could make some sense. Of course, that depends on health and availability to get those contracts, but it could be a good way of leveraging the money, especially if that's something that we want to leave behind. But I would say just really kind of look at what do I want to do with these dollars, because once again, how we handle these funds might be derived from that answer of exactly what's the motive, what's the goal here.
All right, our next question is from Patrick. I can't keep up with what's going on with required minimum distributions. When do we have to take those?
Well, just like Patrick, I think there's a lot of people that are questioning that. Here, I'll just give a blanketed statement. Make sure you jump in and you go to irs.gov, because for many folks, it used to be 70.5. That was the way that things were for years. And I think a lot of folks are still thinking that way, that, hey, I have to take this at 70.5. Not necessarily the case. A few short years ago, we changed the rules on this, pushed it to 72. Now we've got rules in play, depending on your birth date, it could be 73, it could be 75. So what I would say here, without knowing any more information, is make sure you look at that. But a great question, because for many years it was 70.5, and now those things have changed.
Another question from Marcy. I've heard you mention longevity several times on this show, and I just don't think it's something that applies to me given my family history. If it's not a huge concern, is there a way to set up my money so I can do some fun things while I'm willing and able to do it, but have a backup plan just in case I live longer than expected?
Well, I tell you what, Marcy wants the cake and eat it too
She
here,
does.
I think. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is kind of tough to do so, right? We have to make a plan based around some sort of circumstances, some sort of data inputs. And so when we put together an income plan, the question becomes, Kelly, how much per month? And what do you have saved? And when do you want to retire? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here's some unknowns. Will you and your husband pass away on the same day at the same time? Statistically, no. So now it becomes, well, what is being brought to the table, maybe by a spouse or another significant other? All of those questions apply. In this question, what I would say is, it really is very hard to, pinpoint how long we're going to live. Obviously, certain health concerns give us a little bit more insight to that, but it does become one of those questions to say, how long are we going to live? And I just don't have that crystal ball. So Kelly, I don't know that I can fully answer this question. What I would tell you is plan for this long, beautiful retirement. And hey, if things end up having to take a turn or things do change, just know that you can have that extreme comfort and that confidence to get through your retirement years.
Certainly not an easy answer. Well, last question from Trent. Is my Social Security benefit going to be taxed? I'm having trouble figuring out what to expect with that.
Well, I tell you what, yes is likely the answer. So there's different thresholds here, and this is something that's an eye-opener for really a lot of our viewers likely, because I know that as we speak to different groups, many folks will say, wait a minute, I didn't think that I was going to have any of that taxed. I've put that money away for years, and now you're telling me that when I get some of it in income, I'm going to have to pay taxes? Likely. It's either going to be none of it's taxed, and there's different thresholds if you're single or married. And then there's the next threshold of 50%, which is a pretty high jump from 0, which is where we begin. And then the highest is 85% of that Social Security would be taxed at an ordinary income rate. So just hear this correctly. It's not 50% is gone or it's taxed at that rate, or 85% is the rate, but it is that amount of the Social Security checked and that point taxed at your ordinary income rate. So yes becomes the quick answer, most likely. And this is really what brings me to an offer that we have for all the viewers today, and it's our tax reduction report. One of them is provisional income tax, which is Social Security taxation. It's just what we've been talking about. We believe that you need to keep as much of your hard-earned money in your pocket versus Uncle Sam's. And we can show you how to do that with our tax reduction report. We're going to discuss things just like provisional income that I just mentioned, and it's as simple as calling 855-955-6868. One of our fiduciary advisors is going to gather some basic information, and then we're going to show you how much we might be able to save. We're going to use strategies such as our SRT, and we'll explain what that looks like for you. So right now is the time to call 855-955-6868. There's no cost, there's no obligation, and that number once again is 855-955-6868.
All right, great offer. Thank you, Zach. And if you have a question, submit it and we may just answer it on a future show. And if you want to know how to generate lifetime income, potentially reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, reach out now to start planning for your ideal retirement. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Kelly Dame. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.